Hello, listeners of the Pluto is a Planet podcast. Today I'm joined by Artie and Alistair as usual, but we have a very special guest, TieTheLegoGuy. So, Ty, would you like to introduce yourself and tell the listeners a bit about your channel?
Sure, yeah. My name's TieTheLegoGuy. That's the name of the channel. As it's in the channel's name, we do a lot of different Lego stuff. So, reviews, mocks, vlogs, hauls, basically anything you can think about Lego. That's what we kind of do on it.
Yeah, do you have a focus on Star Wars, or is it just general Lego, or bits and bobs of everything?
A bit of everything. I think we take a little bit more focus on Star Wars, but we also vintage Lego sets as well. Those that probably makes up for the most part for the channel's content.
Sounds good. Yeah.
So if you guys wouldn't mind checking out Ty's channel, he has a awesome live stream every Sunday that I personally love going to. I've been every week so far, I believe, for the past 3 weeks. I've enjoyed it. I only can stay a few hours because by the time Ty comes on, it's like 12 o'clock for me. But it's well worth checking out.
Definitely.
But I've got to say, when I found you, I was talking to Artie about it, and Artie checked out your channel, and he couldn't believe how many Lego sets and Lego minifigures you had, because it's insane. Didn't you do a count up of all your minifigures lately?
Years of collecting, right? So I think 800. I have 860 Star Wars minifigs, but it's taken me like 20 years to get that many. But
wow,
I like Star Wars.
Yeah.
But so what is one of your coolest Lego sets?
Probably like some of the UCS Star Wars sets, like the Super Star Destroyer, the Death Star 2, or like even like pirates. I also love pirates, like the Imperial flagship. Those come to mind, yeah.
Yeah. So link will be in description for Ty's channel, so please go and check that out. Anyway, let's start up today's theme. So what is everyone's favourite Star Wars episode to start off with?
Yeah, let's start with Ty. Which is your favourite either like TV show or episode of the main saga, or even like Rogue One, that sort of thing?
Hard question, but I have to say my favorite like film, at least from Star Wars, is Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Easy choice.
Well, mine has to be like Episode 3, I think. I just love the prequels. They're just amazing. I love them. I love the fact there's clones in them. I just think it makes it 100 times better. Episode 2 used to be my favourite.
Wow.
After we rewatched,
controversial.
I think
popular opinion.
I think the whole reason why I enjoyed it was because it was the first time you got to see the clones, and I enjoyed the Clone Wars so much, the series. That kind of like was the place where I first found the Clone Wars through Episode 2.
Yeah, and I suppose when we were growing up, that would have been the most like visually appealing Star Wars film as children, because obviously the sequel trilogy hadn't even begun at that point. But yeah, my favourite Star Wars film. It could change on any day, and this is going to be controversial. So yeah, calm down. But I'm gonna go with The Force Awakens. Is probably my favourite Star Wars film.
And Artie? Has Artie said his?
Well, my favourite Star Wars film is Revenge of the Sith, because it's just ridiculous and fun, and all the way through is brilliant. But I think the best Star Wars film is Episode 5.
That is a good one.
Fair enough. Episode 5 is like renowned as I think it's probably the most iconic Star Wars film.
Yeah, most probably.
Like, if someone says Star Wars, it's probably the name Star Wars is probably just as synonymous as the words "I am your father."
Yeah.
If you say one of those two things, people know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
What is your least favourite Star Wars movie?
That's a tough one, because I hate Solo. And Episode 2 is awful, but The Last Jedi angers me to my core.
Yeah.
This is a very, very controversial thing. We've had I think we've had a few podcasts now where we've just ended up having a massive rant about the sequels, haven't we?
Yeah,
Personally,
Ty, what are your thoughts on the sequel trilogy? Like, where do you stand with it?
I mean, it's fine if you guys like it, like, or if someone likes it. I'm not, against you or gonna start swearing at you or something
Yeah.
like some fans. But like, yeah, I mean, episode 7, I would say, is the best out of the 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
But
The other two, yikes.
8 and 9, yeah, they really bug me lore wise or like character wise. Like, I just feel like episode 8 didn't portray Luke Skywalker correctly. Episode 9 kind of had conflictions with Anakin being the whole chosen one, right? So
Definitely,
which he is. Even George Lucas said he is. So I mean, I could get nitpicky into little things, but those are the main 2 things I have issues with the sequel trilogy.
Yeah, I've got to completely agree on that. Like, for my least favorite, I might have to just go with either The Last Jedi or Rise of Skywalker because they contradict everything so much, and it's just they're not great films, and it really bugs me because, as I mentioned, Force Awakens was such a good start in my opinion, but from there it just rapidly went downhill.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that.
Episode 9, if you forget plain stuff, as its own film, it's not bad. Whereas episode 8 is at some moments just an awful film.
It doesn't feel
Canto Bite is an entirely irrelevant like storyline, along with the fact that they have huge dramatic moments and just reduce them to a cheap gag.
Yeah, I can't get over the Luke throwing the lightsaber.
It's my least favorite moment in Star Wars.
Yeah.
I've got to say, episode 8 is my least favorite. There's nothing interesting that happens, really. I think the most interesting thing was when, I've forgotten her name, flew the Mon Calamari.
Holdo.
Yeah, she flew the Mon Calamari ship straight into Snoke's.
Yeah.
Created a whole bunch
that bugs me because
Joe
was cool. That's why they did it.
Joe had a massive go at us when he said we should just fly a load of X-wings into
literally
exactly.
if you can,
but it won't work, will it?
Yeah, it would. There's no reason it wouldn't.
Well, they did that whole 1 in a million thing to try and explain it.
Yeah, but Artie, when you think about the amount of pilots who die on any given mission, like let's go back to A New Hope, the first one, the Death Star. They've got so many X-wings that can go into hyperspace and hyperspeed or whatever it's called. Why didn't they just send one guy? Or they could get a droid in there to just hyperspace.
Why would one guy be able to do it?
Why wouldn't he?
Because if one X-wing hits one ship, that's one ship down. There's still the whole fleet.
No, the Death Star is what I'm talking about. Couldn't they have just flown directly into the Death Star?
What Joe is saying, he thinks that one X-wing can go into hyperspace and destroy Death Star. It doesn't work like that. It's size relative. The fact is, the Mon Calamari cruiser is massive, and it can easily go through Krennic's part. It only destroyed part of his ship. The other half was still operational. It just took out a wing, and I know it went all the way through.
The whole fleet got decimated by Holdo doing that.
Yeah, I understand. To be honest.
No,
but anyway, we should probably move on from this.
Anyway,
today's kind of segues on perfectly because there's a lot of controversy around Star Wars and there's a lot of bad blood in the fandom. So the key question is Star Wars dead?
Who wants to start?
It's not.
I don't think it is. I think it was for a partial time when everyone. For a while, when episode 3 came out, everyone was a little bit it went a bit quiet. We were just relying on the Clone Wars mainly, and suddenly, episode 7 was announced, and everyone got really hyped up. Episode 7 was good, but it wasn't amazing. It wasn't like episode 3 or any of the originals, but it will never be able to compare to the originals. Nothing can. I think they did an alright job with it. However, after 8 and 9 came out, it kind of just went a little bit downhill, and everyone just started to get a little bit upset with the whole Star Wars and J.J. Abrams. Everyone was a little bit, this is getting bad. but I think recently Disney have done a decent job with like The Mandalorian,
See,
and
I've got to say,
especially finishing off the Clone Wars like they did. No spoilers because two of us here haven't watched it. I think Disney did an amazing job. I've never ever seen an animation done so well.
see, I think the exact opposite in that Star Wars is dying now more than it ever has because you mentioned at the end of episode 3, at the end of the prequels, everyone was like, well, there's no Star Wars content. There wasn't, but everyone was begging for more. They wanted more Star Wars content, whereas we're here in 2020 with loads of Star Wars content, and I honestly can't keep up and don't want this much content. Like, I feel like Disney are pumping out so much and they're losing the heart that was originally in the franchise. Like, although the prequels turned out bad.
No, you, Joe, but they've announced Mandalorian season 2. Like, obviously, it was a while ago now, and everyone is so hyped for it. Like, I haven't spoken to anyone apart from you. I know you're unsure on it because the whole Western style. Who is?
It's good. It's not like Firefly, anyways. But yeah, go on.
Yeah, and then obviously, like, I've heard almost unanimous praise for the last season of Clone Wars. What do you think, Ty?
Honestly, like with the friend, I feel like it is and it isn't. Why I say that is I feel that they're in a very what they do is really going to make it, whether people continue to be fans or continue to pay attention or not. Like they're making some good moves. Like they got George Lucas in. They're paying more attention to Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, who are also great, and they respect George a bunch. If they continue on that way, they're going to do well. If they deviate and go more the Kathleen Kennedy route, the Rian Johnson route, it's going to fail. So that's kind of where I'm at with Star Wars. And the times that they've relied on those directors, that have done The Mandalorian or the Clone Wars, right? They've done really well. Whereas when they've deviated and gone with Rian Johnson or let Kathleen Kennedy have creative control, it's gone downhill. So that's kind of where I'm at. Best way I can put it.
This is why they brought back JJ. No, not JJ. George Lucas.
I think.
I love George Lucas.
They're obviously struggling, and they're struggling with the fans because everyone loves George Lucas. He has a vision. He knows Star Wars because he created it, for God's sakes. He knows what he's meant to be doing. It's in his head, no one else's.
George Lucas is that people like him now. But a good, like, before Force Awakens came out,
they hated
everyone was saying George Lucas ruined Star Wars by making the prequels. He ruined Star Wars by remastering the originals. And actually, his ideas for the sequels, I know, Joe, you know more about this than me because you initially told me about it, but some of the ideas are just awful.
Yeah. The thing is, I think the reason I'd say Star Wars is dying is you guys you'd call yourselves like hardcore fans, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
I'm almost, yeah.
Whereas I'd say I'm a fan, but I'm not massively invested. Like, I love most sci-fi shows, and Star Wars is just like another one that I like. And from my perspective, and many people, like, just my friend group, for example, like when Rogue One came out, we were all so hyped, and yeah, this is Star Wars, but yeah. Whereas now, The Mandalorian, however, it's been out for months and we still haven't watched it. Like, I'm only halfway through it.
That's because
it's more exclusive.
The thing is, there's so much Star Wars content, and it's not the fault of it because The Mandalorian is like critical success, The Clone Wars critical success, but because the Skywalker saga, which is the main public eye thing, because that has flopped so badly, no one is invested anymore apart from the hardcore fans. Like, you guys really enjoy it, but you want this content, whereas people like me, who a few years ago would have like done anything to see more Star Wars content, are now kind of fed up because of the bad impression of the sequel trilogy.
I
just want to see a massive extended cut of episode 9 because one of the reasons I don't like it is because they don't explain anything. I mean, the whole explanation for Sidious coming back is that quote from episode 3, the dark side of the Force can lead to many things some consider to be unnatural. So I feel like out there's a bunch of unused footage that they just need to release in a huge 4-hour extended cut that explains everything. Because
actually, to add to that, my dad is probably kind of, he's on the same page. He's like an average Star Wars fan. He's not crazy, but he does like it. And he's like, he saw it, and not even looking at the lore, he's just like, it jumped around too much. Like it didn't captivate me at all. I didn't care, right? So
that's hit the nail on the head there.
That is really.
My dad's similar, and and my uncle and his kids, and all of them loved it. So I feel like it's not just divided the fandom into; it's just divided everyone.
Yeah, I think there's also the debate of every fandom now is sort of toxic. Like, the one I can speak most from, because obviously I run a Doctor Who YouTube channel, but the Doctor Who fandom, since, like, casting a female Doctor, it's completely divided, controversy everywhere. Like, Star Trek fandom divided, Star Wars fandom divided. Is that just a thing of fandom culture now, that there is so much division, or do you think it is the fault of Star Wars?
I think it's a lot the fault of the fandom, because, like, if you think before, like, the internet, like, we are so easily able to share our opinions nowadays that, like, I bet when the prequels were made, there were a lot less publicly hated until later. It had to develop over time because opinions shared more slowly. But nowadays, the film comes out, and by the end of the weekend, either everyone loves it or everyone hates it, or everyone's fighting each other. There's no slow, like, feel of how the fandom will move, and because of this shock opinion culture, it means that the Star Wars franchise has to respond quick. So Abrams overcorrected where Rian Johnson failed.
Yeah, because basically, that's a really interesting point, which I've not really thought about, but since you've said that, it has occurred to me, like, the whole of The Rise of Skywalker is literally just him trying to tip X over what Rian Johnson did and say, no, this is good now. Luke does hold the lightsaber. He picks it up. He raises his X-Wing out the water. Like, all these little things. It's basically just a movie made trying to, like... I can't put it into words. Like, people on Twitter complain. He's basically taken the tweets and gone, you can't complain now because we've done what you wanted. But in doing that, it didn't turn out very well.
It's just made more problems.
Yeah.
Do you think Star Wars has lost its touch? Its magical feel? Like, I don't... Personally, not for me. Not for me. No, whenever something Star Warsy comes out, I always get really excited. I still watch some of the trailers and I still get, like, goosebumps because they're just so good.
Yeah.
I feel like that I've been in an advantageous position to, like, survive the effects of Rise of Skywalker, because it came out and I was really annoyed
like
at Star Wars for a while. But then I got Disney, and I also got Battlefront 2 earlier this year, and I also got Fallen Order, like, in the last few weeks. So I've had a bunch of awesome Star Wars content to, like, go through rehabilitation from the hatred that episode filled me.
I can get on board with that. Like with the Mandalorian, Clone Wars, the stuff that's good, it still has that special feel. Whereas the stuff that, like, for instance, I get in, like, Quora, that some guy read an article, he's like, oh, how it makes sense that Palpatine came back or whatever. I won't even read it. In fact, I'll just get annoyed and, like, throw it out because I'm like, Palpatine died in episode 6. It's over.
Yeah,
right?
that's
like,
how it should.
Yeah. Whereas, like,
it does bug me because I can't now watch episode 6 and have a satisfying ending, because it's like, okay, well, all of that was for nothing, because 30 years' time, all these 3 main characters are dead and the Emperor's back. Like, what was the point?
Yeah.
It's almost like the Star Wars franchise was just panicking because they didn't have a good main character.
Yeah, I watched, it was an impulsive decision. It was literally earlier today, I was watching the behind the scenes, and J.J. Abrams said it was a matter of hours. They went, what are we going to do for the Rise of Skywalker? Let's bring back Palpatine. And at that moment, like, that's the first time they mentioned it, he phones up Ian McDermott, or whatever the actor's name is, and gets him on board. And it was basically just an impulse decision. like there was no thought gone into it. It was, we need to fix this quickly. There we go. And I think that really shows.
Right, yeah.
I have no idea why they didn't plan out the trilogy at the very beginning.
Yeah,
It is ridiculous.
That comes back to my point from earlier as well. There's no heart in it. They're not telling a story because they want to tell a story. They're telling a story because they need to tell a story, and it really shows in the films.
It just feels like
George Lucas, original trilogy. Yeah, you can argue he didn't have a proper plan, but the prequels thematically are like a work of genius. Like, they didn't turn out great to watch, but the themes and messages and everything behind it is really well planned out. Whereas the sequel trilogy,
there's so many clues of how you can see it coming together, and it's like, even in the first film, he manages to like go from the Senator of Naboo to Chancellor, and you don't realize it until episode 3. But everything in it was seeded, and when it went to Disney, you think this is a huge corporation. They've done Marvel. They know how to reference things before they happen. But instead, they didn't plan anything. They made one film after another without forward thinking, and it turned out terrible.
Yeah, can't argue with that.
I feel like we expected a lot from Disney because of like the Avengers and stuff like that. Because Avengers and Star Wars are almost battling in the box office because they were the two biggest movies that came out.
The Avengers is basically our generation's original trilogy.
Yeah.
Like, we will be telling our kids in the future, oh yeah, I remember going to see that at the cinema. Like, it will be an event viewing.
I remember going to see Iron Man
in another 10 years at the end of Phase 6, we'll be saying, oh, this isn't as good as the originals.
Exactly.
I miss Tony Stark. I already do.
Yeah.
There hasn't even been another Avengers movie and I already miss him.
Speaking of missing characters, one of my main problems with Star Wars is the fact, like this, it sounds really childish because it kind of is, but we never got to see a scene with Luke, Leia, and Han in the in the sequel trilogy. That bugs me to the nth degree. Like, come on.
What?
Oh yeah. You're not alone. Even Mark Hamill complained about that.
Yeah.
So it's it's a big deal. Yeah, everyone wanted to see that.
Yeah. Even just one scene.
I don't know whether like Mark Hamill should be given like the amount of credit he is, because at the end of the day he's awesome, but he kind of sabotaged Last Jedi before it came out. Loads of people went in trying to think like, what's the bit that Mark Hamill hated? Why does he hate this movie? People walked into it disappointed. So I feel like
I don't agree.
Okay
I
for his own
think
opinion.
like, for example, me and you walking into The Last Jedi, I almost in my head it couldn't go wrong, because obviously I love The Force Awakens so much. I went in with such a positive mindset, and I think Mark Hamill was right, because he was trying to warn us. He was trying to say, don't get your hopes up, because ultimately you're going to be disappointed by what happens. And I think it's fair of him to try and warn the audience, because, yeah, do you see where I'm coming from?
It would be too harsh to hype it up.
Yeah.
It will almost ruin his legacy of Star Wars.
Yeah.
Like,
honestly, like with looking at Luke, well, and I think that's where he was coming from, and he even said this, and other people like have gone into this that know a lot about it. But he's the type of hero that was willing to die to save his father. He went against Obi-Wan and Yoda when they said, no, you shouldn't go. You're not ready. Vader's gonna take you. He's like, no, I need to help my friends. Leia and Han, they're all in trouble. I have to go. This is the type of guy he was, and then he just turns into, oh, my nephew might be turning the dark side, so I was going to kill him, but then I thought that was bad, and now I'm depressed. Like, that's not Luke.
Yeah,
like
Mark Hamill said in an interview as well, he had to try and I think he called him Jake Skywalker. He said, I'm not playing Luke because he's so different. He's got to put on the mind of a Jake Skywalker character, because, as you rightly pointed out, Ty, he is nothing like Luke. He doesn't stand for what Luke did.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
I disagree, to be honest. I feel like Luke, that could have been a really interesting story, and it could have been believable. But because of the way Johnson reduced it down to the cheap gags and the gross out humor, like throwing the lightsaber over the shoulder is a crime. people were waiting 20 years to see what Luke Skywalker would do, and he does that. Then also the weird thing, oh, he's drinking green milk again. Who cares? Just give us some like interesting storytelling. Like the story itself, I think, is quite interesting, and I would have been happy to see it play out. But the problem is how they told it.
Yeah. It could have worked because narratively, Luke needs a journey in the sequels to be an engaging character. Because if you have him start off as just all powerful, all knowing, all whatever, it'll become bland. But they didn't, like you said, they didn't do it in a way that was plausible, and it just felt completely wrong.
I've got two things to say. So the first thing is, do you think the whole problem is that all the three main actors are getting too old?
No.
Is that part of the problem? No?
Because The Force
All
Awakens,
of them were great.
They were all there for it, and they left it too late. And that's another thing. Carrie Fisher's inclusion in
that was
The Rise of
going to be
Skywalker.
my second one. I thought it was really disrespectful.
Yeah, it's horrible. It feels really wrong. What do you guys think on Carrie Fisher being in The Rise of Skywalker?
I think it's like I said, I think it's really disrespectful.
I liked it. I'm not gonna lie. I thought it was obviously they couldn't have her in a fight scene because she's not the lightsaber fighting person. But I thought she had a noble death. It was respectful to the actor, and apart from some pretty shocking light corrections and dialogue being put in, I thought it was all right.
It felt wrong because you can tell that she's not speaking to any of the characters, and I can never really fault Daisy Ridley's performance apart from in those moments, because she's clearly not talking to Leia, and Leia is clearly not talking to her. It feels like one of those fan edits where they've cropped someone out and added them into a scene. It doesn't feel right.
It's like your Doctor Who fan films.
Yeah, it literally is.
Speaking of Daisy Ridley's performance, like one of the things that I think was actually fantastic about the sequel trilogy, and there's not many things to talk about. I think all of the actors they chose, except from Rose, were actually fantastic. Like everyone in it played their part brilliantly.
They all had brilliant potential, but the writing and everything let them down.
I really like Poe.
It was just amazing all the way through.
It was. Poe was probably one of my favorite characters.
Cool. Yeah.
I thought the fact he was like a flyboy Han Solo. I think he replaced Han Solo really well in episode 8 and 9. Like, I felt like he really was a leader, and
The thing is, in episode 7, he barely did anything. So in episode 8, I'd forgotten who he was.
Yeah, I didn't even know he was meant to be a main character until The Last Jedi.
Me neither.
He's barely at the forefront of the films.
I think his jacket's more famous than him in episode 7.
What do you think, Ty?
Like pertaining to like Poe or
everything.
Just like generally the characters and the actors specifically in the sequels.
I think they could have did a lot more with the original cast.
Definitely.
You know, they kind of didn't want to do that because they're like, oh, Luke's gonna take the screen time away from everybody because they just want to know about Luke. But I'm like, well, it's Luke Skywalker. Like, come on. But yeah, I like Poe. I didn't mind Finn. I had issues with Rey just because everyone, there's supposed to be the hero's journey, right? Like if you look at Anakin or they go through what they're going through, they fail, but they get up, they try again, they learn more, and then they eventually, they come out the winner, right? With Rey, she's just like always the winner. I mean, she even takes out Palpatine, which apparently there's some more backstory into that, but there's no hero journey. So I had an issue with Rey, but I didn't mind Poe and Finn, and yeah.
I think one of my main bits that I didn't like was in episode 7 when Rey was fighting Kylo Ren, and she she beat the hell out of him.
See,
Like,
that's
that
the
wasn't-
only instance I find it okay, because he was just shot by Chewbacca and
Yeah,
he was
true.
bleeding out and collapsing. Whereas
Still,
you then
Joe,
go to
he's a Sith Lord who was trained by Luke and
yeah, but he's
Snoke.
not, and that's what I really like about Kylo Ren. He seems all cool and dark and whatever, but ultimately, as the Emperor says, he is just a little child screaming and having rage fits.
No,
Hence
but
why he smashes up the Death Star with his
But
lightsaber
regardless
like
of
an
the
angry
Force-
teenager.
regardless of the Force, that was a lightsaber fight, and he was trained by Luke Skywalker and Supreme Leader Snoke. He should be an absolute boss.
Yeah.
I mean, if you see the speed comparisons, like the prequel lightsaber fights, and then like what it could have been, look to the Old Republic videos, and what we got was so slow and
Yeah,
That's
did you
why I
see
said
episode
it's
8?
acceptable in
Yeah.
The Force Awakens, but nowhere else, because it makes sense. He's just been shot. But any other time, I completely agree with you. But I still hold out that The Force Awakens, it makes sense because he's bleeding. He's only using one arm the whole time. And yeah, his face is a mess and everything. I think it's fair enough there. But all the other films, there's literally no excuse.
If you take time out and watch episode 8 again, when Kylo Ren and Rey were fighting off Snoke's guards after Snoke had died, you can see how bad that fight scene is.
Yeah,
Honestly,
some of the guards,
Yeah,
the
there
guys-
was
the
people in
guys are
background
just-
waving stuff around.
and so, did you see one of them? They just went flying backwards, didn't even get hit by anything, not even the
Yeah.
Force. They just started flopping about. It was
and one
awful.
of them misses their cue and ducks too early before they've been kicked, and it's like, what is going on? Could they not just see on the day? Okay,
He's
hang
force
on.
sensitive. He knew it was coming.
Speaking
It's
of
a big
force-sensitive
conspiracy.
people, can we appreciate how rubbish the Knights of Ren were in the end? There was
Yeah.
so much hype for them.
I wanted them to be more cool. Like they got easy.
That's a very good analysis, Alistair.
Like,
Everyone did.
I wish they actually did more damage to Kylo Ren than they did. They got slayed by him. It was an easy fight.
No, I don't mind that fight. I just hate the fact they're basically like, oh, I'm edgy, I'm from Mad Max, I wear leather and chains, and I have an axe.
I'm emo.
Like, why weren't they like the Sith Inquisitors from, like, Fallen
Yes!
Order? That's what they should have been.
Yeah, there's so many problems, but I'm going to try and bring this back now on a whole to the main question of, is Star Wars dying? Yeah, what about the other TV shows and things? Because
Shall we talk
I
about the
still
future?
think...
Of future
Yeah,
of Star Wars?
go for that then.
I think that I know the Clone Wars has ended. And I think it ended brilliantly. I know that Rebels is still going on, but I'm not too interested. Mandalorian season 2 has come out. That, just looking at the cast, it looks already
Hang on,
good.
Mandalorian season 2 isn't out yet.
No, but it's coming out very soon.
Okay.
If you just have a look at the cast, Ahsoka Tano's going to be in it. Like,
I don't know that for sure.
She's in the casting list.
Oh, right, okay.
I don't think she is.
She is. The guy who plays Boba Fett and all the clones and all that. And
yeah, Boba Fett's back too.
yeah, Ahsoka and Boba are going to be in it. But do you know what I hope?
Wait, can I just say, do they know for sure that it's Ahsoka, or is that just the rumors? Like, have they seen Rosario
They're
Dawson
pretty
and
sure
thought,
it's going to be Ahsoka. They're
"No,
like
it's not
Yeah, but-
confirmed."
90%.
Don't report on it if it's not
Yeah, whatever.
fact.
Might as well. To be honest, I know I'm going to be right. I'm force sensitive. I know what's going to happen.
You were that
In
guy.
other words, I go onto
Take
illegal
that card.
websites and download stuff extra early. But yeah, do you know what I hope? The guy, what's his name? The guy who plays Django Fett.
No idea.
Let me just search.
Oh,
it.
he's a Kiwi, but I
Yeah.
forget his name.
Hmm.
Is this guy who played him in the movies the same as the guy from Clone Wars?
Yes.
He's from episode 2. Yeah.
Timiru Morrison, that's his name. As you know, he's gotten pretty old because he's almost like 15 years older. Than he was.
That's because 15 years have
Yeah, I know.
passed.
But he's actually this is going to sound really weird. He's gone bald, but if you check out Rebels, he looks exactly like an older version of Captain
Rebels
Rex.
is animated.
Yeah, but he looks exactly like Captain Rex when he's older. And I know it's like he's meant to look like Temuera Morrison because it's based off him, but they look exactly the same. All he needs is a beard, and this is where I come to. Maybe Temuera Morrison may play Boba Fett and also Captain Rex with Ahsoka. Imagine how cool that would be.
Yeah.
I think
yeah,
that would
that'd
be
be
awesome. Seeing those two, well, Ahsoka for the very first time in like, what do you call it? Non-animation.
Live action.
Yeah, live action.
Yeah.
And as well, Captain Rex, because you don't see him.
Yeah.
Something that I was also thinking of, I'd like to see a spin-off of Captain Rex and Commander Cody after, and see them like battling it out. That would be interesting to see. I know that will never happen, but that's like a dream of mine.
I don't know. I feel like, yeah,
There's
too many random things.
Yeah, but I was really wishing for the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. That
Is that
that's
still
coming
in
out.
production?
That's official.
is it?
Yeah, but is it still in production?
Yeah, no, it's still coming. Yeah,
I
okay.
think they
Thank God.
halted production, but
it's just halt. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Is Ewan McGregor going to be playing?
yeah,
Oh,
Yeah.
of course.
Nice.
It's got to be.
Thank
What
God.
do you guys
Man, the
think
myth, the legend.
if
Hello
in
there.
like 10, 15 years' time they were going to make another Skywalker saga set of films where Rey, Kylo, and that lot are all older? Well, Kylo's dead, so not Kylo, but Rey, Finn, and Poe, they're all older and they've had kids or whatever. Would you say that's a good idea? Should they ever continue the saga, or should they just leave it and stop?
Well, they did say it was the end.
Yeah, but they said that at episode 6, and then at episode 3, and now at episode 9.
Do you think? I hope something happens.
Do you think it
I
should
reckon
happen?
If something does
Yeah.
happen, it won't happen soon. I don't think we're going to get a sequel film in a long.
I think it's going to be another
time.
15 years before we see some him.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Yeah, Disney
like, 'cause-
did this. Like the final film, they've released the game on Lego complete. Oh, the Skywalker saga.
yeah, but Artie, you've
seems
got to
like-
remember they did the exact same in 2005 with the Revenge of the Sith. Like, if you look at any of the
And
trailers for
probably
that,
for Return of the Jedi, actually.
yeah, it happens at the end of every trilogy because they want to build as much hype and money they can. Because if everyone goes, "Oh, this is the last one,"
It just
Yeah.
targets
They
different
knew the film
generations to
wasn't
come.
going to sell. They had to have the idea that it was the last one.
yeah. Because also, there's the problem. Like, you may disagree with this, but I stopped and thought about the other day the fact that there are now more bad or subpar Star Wars films than there are good in the main
doesn't
saga. Because what I'd say are the good ones are episode 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And then the rest of them are either bad or just subpar.
Phantom Menace is pretty good.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it is.
It
No.
has had its moments.
I feel like
Like-
even Battlefront 2, like that was a massive flop at first, and they kind of redeemed themselves. But looking at it, I was watching a video today, and I kind of agreed with what this guy was saying. He said that what we have right now, with all the updates finished, is what we should have started with. All those characters, and that's how it should have grown. However,
Yeah.
we started off with something absolutely rubbish, and they had to create something that is good, right? Well, what we think is good, well, it's way better than what we had. But that is something that we should have started off with, and we should have got more characters like Ahsoka Tano, Ventress, Captain Rex, Commander Cody, people like that. We didn't even get Poe Dameron, but we got him in a starfighter. How does that make any sense?
Literally, it was so easy to make Battlefront 2 because what people have been calling for years is they're just like, give us the original 2005 Battlefront 2, but just give us updated graphics. It's that simple. It's that simple. You don't need to get all creative and think a bunch. It's that simple. And so, anyways, I think they got that now, but it's just like,
All you
that's
need
what you
is
should do from the start.
yeah. All they need is the supremacy of all the different eras. They need some sort of a starfighter assault and heroes versus villains. That's it. Nothing
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
It's not that hard.
No, it's been done. Do it again, but better.
Yeah, better graphics.
Yeah,
For the
exactly.
next
yeah.
generation
You can say
console.
that about anything. They've made a good Star Wars film before, but it's still difficult to do it again. And I feel like if they did just remaster the old Battlefront, there will have been some outcry because, like, if you actually look on it, although it was amazing for the time, if they released it again now,
Well, no, because the difference is a film requires a plot, and like obviously games can have plots, but Battlefront isn't like as difficult to make as a film because, as Ty and Alistair were saying, if you did just recreate the original with better graphics, a few more things, newer things, different planes, etc., everyone would be fine with that.
Just keep the new maps updated, and I don't know, bring some new
Yeah,
weapons and
all in
stuff.
all, you just sort of come at you with a lightsaber or something.
Yeah,
like.
that's it. People just want to pretend they're part of the clone army, and someone gets to be Obi-Wan Kenobi every 5 minutes. That is it. That is it. Everyone wants to be
That's
in the
all anyone
501st.
wants from life.
That's it. I just want a game about the 501st. That is it.
I feel like the crime of Battlefront is that when they released it, they'd made Star Wars Battlefront 1 so much bigger that it downscaled so much. What they should have done is re-released all the heroes that were out at the end of Battlefront 1 should be in Battlefront 2. That should be a given. Instead, there was a really small selection. Like, to begin with, Anakin and Obi-Wan Kenobi weren't in the game. That's insane.
Big oof.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like Star Wars isn't dead. We just don't like it.
Right. Let's wrap this up. Yeah.
What are your final decisions
Star
on
Wars,
the main question?
Star Wars isn't dead.
Yeah, there's a lot to complain about, but I feel like there's also a lot to be hopeful for.
What do you think, Ty?
Yeah, no, I don't think it's dead. Again, I just think that that's part of the reason why, if you look into even the presidents of Disney or whatever, or the whoever's Bob Iger or whatever, they can see that they need to make some big changes, and if they continue going in the the way that they're trying to with George Lucas, Dave Filoni, Jon Favreau, Star Wars will continue to thrive. But yeah, that's
would
basically
we agree if
point.
I said it's dying, not dead, but it's slowly declining? It could obviously pick up.
It was dying. That's what I'm going to say. It was dying for a little while, but then it kicked back.
When?
After 8 and 9.
Between episode 8 and 9.
That is when people were worried. And then I personally think Mandalorian kind of saved it, and so did the Clone Wars. And that's why people were hopeful for the future of Mandalorian Season 2 and the Obi-Wan Kenobi series.
Do you think that Star Wars can be ever properly saved in terms of in the public eye? Like,
yes,
when you ask people on the street, do you like Star Wars? A lot of them now still predominantly hold on to the memories of the episode 8 and 9, which most people didn't like.
No.
Do you think that we can recover from that?
Mainstream movies.
I personally think
that's what I'm saying.
It was fantastic. Everyone would say, "Yeah, I like Star Wars."
Yeah, but do you think that'll happen?
Yeah, I personally think if you walked up to someone on the street,
you asked if it was possible.
No, but Artie, if you look at Doctor Who, for example, you and I know this quite well. Series 11, everyone hated it. Series 12, you really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. Yet everyone still claims that it was terrible.
But
is it possible?
Television is very different from movies because Series 12 will have suffered because there will be less returning viewers. Big box office movies like Star Wars, people will always come and see it. So, like, the success is mainly in the critics afterwards.
That's not necessarily true, because when you actually look at the box office figures for The Rise of Skywalker, it didn't make as much money as was expected. It didn't beat The Force Awakens, and it didn't beat The Last Jedi. It did slowly decline.
Yeah, personally, I think if I go outside right now and ask someone in the street...
The worst Star...
What?
Hello? Artie broke up. I think, personally, if I walk straight outside and I ask someone, do you like Star Wars? I'm pretty sure they're either not a Star Wars fan if they said no, or they would say, and if they were, I think everyone would say yes. Just because 2 movies were bad. Look, should I just shout it to someone outside?
If you really want to.
Excuse me? Sorry, can I ask you one question? Is Star Wars a good movie? Well, franchise. Yeah. Yes, no, come on. Yes, thank you. Have a good day. Thank you. I got a yes and a maybe.
Wait, what did you say? Sorry.
He just went and shouted to random people outside his window and asked if they enjoy Star Wars.
There we go. Let's wrap this up. I just asked random people on the street if Star Wars is good, and they said yes or maybe. And
that means it's officially alive. Star Wars.
It's alive. Star Wars alive. Thank you for watching this podcast.
Random poll.
Remember to go and check out TieTheLegoGuy's YouTube channel. It will be in the link in the description. Thank you and goodbye. Would everyone like to say goodbye? I don't know.
Yeah, goodbye everyone. Thank you. Subscribe.
Have a very
Yeah,
good
thanks for
evening.
listening.
And to each of our individual channels, Lego Explosions, ArtMeister44, and the Confused Addy Pose. So yeah, that wraps it up.
See ya.